You are watching
I was
Xirtus.
going to ask you about the bloodlines thing because you seem to have gone down this rabbit hole as well. What do you think in that terms then of the bloodlines of the Illuminati? And are we all descended from Adam and Eve, or are some of us descended from Lucifer and Eve or Cain? Or what do you
I
think about
mean,
the bloodlines of the Illuminati?
well, because I have like a RH negative blood type, and I've noticed like there's a difference in like the other people I know that have a RH negative blood type. Like there's just a different, I don't know, it's just a different level of understanding. So, but there's different, like if there's that type of difference, right? Like the the RH on whether it's like a monkey or not, right? Like I have no idea, but I do think that there is something to the tracing the bloodlines. They wouldn't care about their bloodline so much if it didn't mean anything. And I kind of feel like they say like the soul is in the blood, and so there might be something in terms of like reincarnating back into your ancient bloodline. Like I remember one time someone wrote a book on occult blood science. Who was it? He was the guy who does like Rudolf Steiner, I think, wrote a
Oh
book
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
Did you read that one?
I read a bunch of it. I stayed with a bunch of grandmothers who built mud huts in the middle of the Arizona desert for 3 months, and they had a library of nothing but Rudolf Steiner books. And like even like if you go to find online like his books, it gives you like the smallest fraction of what the man actually wrote. He was like extremely prolific, but a lot of his books are not widely available because you'd have to be in the Waldorf community to have access to these very limited private publications. But yeah, anyway.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember exactly. And like when I read it though, what I picked up was like there's some sort of either like a genetic memory, like if whether your soul like reincarnates back in there. And so there was
Mhm.
a reason why they kept their bloodlines pure, was just for like spiritual purposes. Um, but yeah, I do. I mean,
Right. There's a lot of like people who would be like outsiders to certain communities who relate to things in a certain way. Like you can see with the Nazis, like there's a lot of projection of like, why do these people only sleep with each other? Like, what are they trying to like? And a lot of their ideas around projections of what they thought that was about, they ended up wanting to outdo them with the thing that they were projecting. So like they became the thing that they were so angry about. Like we should do that, we can do that, you know. So, but there's also it's so presumptuous. Like Adam, the name Adam in Hebrew, the original Adam, right? It's literally Aleph and blood. Like Dam is Hebrew for blood, and Aleph is the life breath, and like that's like in the beginning, like the first indicator in
And a
Bereshit,
tomb, like a tomb.
yeah, where you
yeah,
have like what is the origin of life? Like where's the first point where you're like Adam, the Adam, male and female, is given life is with the breath. So there's a notion in Judaism that like life begins at breath, because that's like as the closest example that we can get to that it's like, oh, now this individual is alive. And so that's, you know, that becomes kind of a conflict, because a lot of Christians would believe that life is like at impregnation, like as soon as that sperm meets that egg, that's the beginning of life. Whereas like in from a biblical sense, it's actually like the first point at which the entity draws a breath, because it's literally bringing now it's come to
Enacting
life.
what God did, right? Breathing
Yeah,
like God breathed. Yeah,
yeah,
God
because
breathed.
it's actually like the two worlds meeting. Everything prior to that is this incubation process, and then when it enters the world, it takes a breath, and then you're like, oh, now it, you know. So, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because it gets into morality, which is a subjective thing. So, like, you know, like Nietzsche's communications around morality are very much like, you know, we come from our cultures, and we come from these different judgments around what it is that is, you know, what is moral, and like that it's eye of the beholder, depending, you know, like you can't
Speaking of
necessarily.
which, what do you think again, Nicole, on the serpent? Because you bring up the serpent quite a bit in terms of the symbolism. I mean, Adam and Eve and the serpent, right?
yeah. Like I think the serpent has got something to do with electricity.
Mm.
Hmm.
Um,
The
in
seraph.
terms of like I remember watching that movie Anaconda. We
Oh, I
that
love
like
that movie.
cheesy Anaconda movie, but they talked about the coil, and
Hmm.
so for me that was I just picked like I just thought there might be something in terms of like this simulation or wherever whatever this is that we live in. Our bodies are electrical, like right. Everything is just like electrical signals that is happening within our own mind. So
I can't help but think about that scene in Anaconda every time where they like cut the throat so that the larynx so they can breathe, right? Which is such a huge Kabbalistic symbol in and of itself as well.
Yeah. Well, the serpent in Hebrew, Nechesh, is the same gematria as Mashiach, with the Messiah. So and which is also 358. So in Numbers 21, Moses puts the serpent on the pole to that the mixed multitude had been bitten by the venomous serpents, and they would look at the serpent or touch the serpent and they would be healed. So there's this idea that Jesus on the cross resonates this serpent on the pole. People argue this is actually where we get the symbol for money from, with the S with the line through it, is actually the serpent on the pole. But yes, they have the same gematria. So, and then there's also the idea that the fall in the garden and the serpent in the garden is equivalent to the Messiah redemption. So it's like, what is the fall and then what is the redemption? Like they're two sides of the same thing. They also happen to be Fibonacci numbers in order. 358, right? Is 358 is gematria of Nechesh and Mashiach.
Yeah. You pointed out that the first day of the Lunar New Year, so the 19 years by how's it work again? The 19-year calendar.
That's like the 19-year. I just meant the new year of this year, right? Or was that last year? Are we in the snake year this year? I can't even keep track.
We are in the year.
Like, my God.
We are in the year of the serpent. The Chinese zodiac, at least, we're in the year of the snake for sure. And so there's a cycle where the solar and the lunar calendar is synchronized. But you pointed this out, that this the serpent year, first day of the Lunar New Year of the snake, to sign a law on anti-Semitism, right? These are rumors Trump descends from the tribe of Dan. Dan is described as a serpent who shall judge his people. Denmark, the mark of Dan, Macedonian, right? Like there's a whole bunch of symbols with King Alexander the Great, right, who's a Macedonian from the mark of Dan, from the tribe of Dan as well.
That's one of the more there's an argument for the tribe of Dan, of the 12 tribes, being the Vikings. That's a stronger argument than a lot of the speculations of where the tribes ended up, right? Like they can actually like trace that line to a higher degree that seems less speculative than a lot of the tribes. So yeah, trippy. Red hair too would be an indicator of that. But
yeah, orange again, right? Orange man bad. Yeah. Totally.
I always think about remember when was it Hamlet where Shakespeare said that Denmark is a prison? Like I always wonder what that and also like that's the phrase, there's something rotten in Denmark. I haven't figured that one out. I haven't decoded that, but like I always wonder like, why did he say Denmark is a prison?
There's some reasons. Well, I mean, one being, because Shakespeare, most of his work is revolved around the life of Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford, right? And so there's the anti-Stratfordian theory or the Oxfordian theory that Shakespeare is really mostly just Ed de Vere. And so talking about his family, the royal family, there's the Sophia Naturalization Act, but the Scandinavians of the Mark of Dan, that this connects to where King James and his wife first had their honeymoon was in Denmark. And there's this huge occultic tradition that comes out of Denmark, essentially where the midwives were practicing, and King James took the women and forced them into the days of humiliation, which is where we get the days of Thanksgiving, because the Spanish Armada were attacking. So we got all of these midwives together and starved them and chained them up together and forced them not to eat, to practice this magic so they could raise a storm. And the storm, luckily enough, did happen. There was a storm, and the storm, wouldn't you know it, wiped out the Spanish Armada, which is why we don't all speak Spanish and are not all, essentially Spanish, because that would have been the end of England. They would have been conquered in that storm. And so this led to Thanksgiving, because then they were given food for surviving this, something rotten in the state of Denmark, right?
Oh my God, thank you. I'd never heard any of that. That's like fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff about Shakespeare. There's definitely some rabbit holes to go down. I know we're near the end, though.
Okay, this will be on the test at the end of this episode, so you are gonna be quizzed.